Hi, welcome to the small shed. This Saturday I want to see if I can get this little patio outside finished. See you in a minute. So we've got all the excavation done. We've got a decent base in with the concrete and hardcore underneath it, so it was time to get on with the slabbing. Now, before I could actually lay slabs themselves, I needed to get some vertical pavers put in along this top path that goes from the shed to the house, because it had been covered up by the flower bed, but when I built it many years ago, it was a bit of a bodge of engineering bricks and Cotswold pavers and all sorts, so it looked a bit scabby. I decided the next thing I really needed to do was to put something on to mask that. So we bought some 200 by 100 pavers, quite thin, to match the slabs, that would just give me that edging. You can see there that the base isn't, or that wall isn't really very good. So I've set to cloak it. I'm using a fairly stiff mix of I think it's 3-to-1 sand and cement. Should give it a little bit of resistance to frost and that sort of thing, and weather. I can't quite get these vertical pavers in properly underneath the top slabs, but as we'll see later on, the line of those slabs isn't quite right anyway, and there's a couple of them that have sunk. So further down the line I'm going to be lifting a few of these slabs just so that I can get them leveled up and just covering over this top edge of the pavers. So after a day or two's work, we've got all those in. We've got the vertical pavers on the curved bed around the shed, so that was all done, and it's time to start laying slabs. Now, in the past I've tended to use 5 blobs of mortar, one in each corner and one in the centre, but I have subsequently seen people laying them on a full bed and have done it once or twice, and it's a much better way of doing it. Solid bed uses a lot more mortar obviously, but it seems to be far more long lasting. I did the circle of slabs on the main patio that way, and not one of those has moved. So we're going down the same route with a fairly sloppy mix. But because I'm mixing, I'm trying to keep the place reasonably clean and tidy, I'm having to mix it up in a relatively small container, so we're having to do 2 or 3 mixes at a time to get enough to do 1 or 2 slabs. But there aren't that many to lay, and I've taken the carriage way out and done the first 5, which are all perfectly uncut slabs that don't need anything else doing to them. And that was partly to just get a feel for what I was doing, if you like, and making sure it was all working right, but also because you need something to work from when you come to do the cuts around the edges, and you can't really lay it all out and cut them and expect it all to go in properly. So I'm putting in the first 5 just to get me that foundation from which I can then work to get the slabs marked up around the edges. You see, with a fairly big rubber mallet they just bed in quite nicely, and you can get your level sorted. And as I say, that's the first 5. Nothing fancy, nothing difficult about it. It's just a straight slab to lay with no cutting, and there are about probably another 10 to do, of varying sizes, but of course they're the ones that are going to be more difficult because they're the ones with all the cuts on them. Just get my levels to sort out, and then leave it for 2 or 3 days until the mortar's gone off, and then make a start on these edge ones. And what I've got there is a batten that is the same size as a slab, and then you just run it along, put the slab on an adjacent free area where you've got the full slab, and you can mark out then where you need to do the cuts and then trim them to suit. Normally in the good old days when I was at work, I could have just wandered off and borrowed a big petrol skill saw with some sort of watering on it to keep the dust down, but those days are long since gone. I've had to resort to using an angle grinder. First time I've tried it, but it seemed to work okay with a 5-inch, 4.5-inch blade, whatever, and just cut through both sides. It's more controllable than the big saws, but it does make an awful lot more dust and mess. But I marked the one side, cut it, and I've then marked roughly on the other side, slightly further inboard, so that it gives you a slight rake on the cut, and cut both sides. It seems to do the trick. I think on the whole of the patio I used about 3 or 4 blades, so it's not desperately expensive as a way of cutting them, but as you can see it's pretty messy in terms of dust. That's it, they just drop off because you end up with about 1/2 inch of mortar in the middle. So that was the next 5 slabs laid, and again I wanted to get those in and bedded before I did the next ones. It's just a progression of getting these things done, so that you don't work on something that you've just laid effectively. And you can see I've made a bit of a cock up with levels in the one corner, and I've had to take a little bit out of the support to this bed in front of the greenhouse. Fortunately it's still relatively green, the mortar, and it came out quite well, just enough to enable me to get a slab in the corner. And again we're just cutting, a little bit of trimming here and there, and getting it all finished off. So I think I had three days of actually slab laying. When I say a day, it's probably only half a day in time, but I had to then let it go off for a day or two before I went back to it. And as you can see, then you start to get the mission creep, project creep, call it what you will, where you start to think, yeah, well that's nice now, but I really could do with sorting out the other slabs. So I've taken up the ones on this top area, broken off the mortar off the back, and relayed those to get that back to a proper level straight edge, and I've managed at the same time to push it slightly further forward and cover up all those verticals as well. So it serves to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Got rid of a trip hazard, and it's covered up the edge. Then I started to rake out the existing patio that I'd done many years ago to try and get some of the joints out and clean so that we could grout it all up together. I was going to try a different form of grouting, and after a little bit of cleaning up that looks a whole lot better, but then project creep number 2 came in when my wife said that these existing stepping stones that she's got up to the greenhouse were causing her problems and made it likely that she would fall over. So I'd got a couple of slabs left over. I deliberately over ordered because of this step area, so the 3 slabs I got left proved to be exactly the right amount to get done in there. But again, we're back into another day's digging and another day's sand, cement, level, hardcore and all sorts. It's not a big job, just a bit more of a job. Had to do one little cut on the bottom edge where it met up with the patio, but other than that it was pretty easy to get those in. Same mix again, 1 to 3, reasonably loose, and just pop them in and give them a smack with a big hammer, which you will see more in a minute. Now, one thing you must not do when you're laying slabs is to hit yourself with the mallet, because it kind of comes up rather odd after an hour or two. So having got it all ready for grouting, I decided that it would probably be worth giving it a really good clean rather than just washing the joints out. So I've got the jet wash out, and you can see how much grime it gets off the slabs. I mean, they're not pristine or brand new, but I didn't really want them to look perfect, but I just wanted them to look a lot better than they did already. Tidied up all the borders around the edge, put the soil back in where the slabs had disturbed it. So I then started out to do the grouting with this new grout mix. It's a resin impregnated sand which is put on with onto a wet slab and a wet joint. It doesn't cause any sort of marking or anything, other than there's a very slight oily finish to the slabs when you first put the stuff on, but it seems to just disappear with the first bit of rain. It's the first time I've used this stuff, but it's an awful lot much more easy than using sand and cement, and relatively quickly. I think it took me about 3 hours to get the whole lot grouted up, swept up and tidied up, ready to occupy, if you like. So this is much easier than either using a wet mortar mix or a dry mix that you then have to wet afterwards to make it go hard. The idea is that it's a permeable grout that will let water through it, but goes hard over time, and it certainly tidied up the whole area quite a lot. Looking a lot better now, and I'm pretty pleased with the way it went down. As regards longevity of the mortar mix itself, this resin stuff, we will see over time, but it certainly made it look a lot smarter. Cleaned all the patio furniture up with the jet wash. That's all now going back, and the wife's bench that she's bought has gone into its new place, and at least I haven't had to make a bench, which is something that I'm pretty grateful for, although I was quite happy to make one in oak or something. So there we are. It's gone from that in March, where it was pretty overgrown, to a nice new area we've got down the bottom to sit and look at the garden and watch the world go by. Right, well, that's another little job, well, big job off the list. It's probably taken too many videos, but in reality it's also taken far too much time. I've been on this, certainly on the slabbing bit, for several days over the last few weeks now, and it's been taking me obviously away from doing stuff in the shed or even on the cycle cart. So glad to see the back of that one, and hopefully we're whittling down this long list of things that needed to be done, so that we can at least get some time to do things that I want to do rather than things everybody else wants me to do. So I hope the video was of interest. I look forward to seeing you next time when we'll be doing something different in the shed. I'll see you then. Bye!